In an empty cemetery, a single father collapsed before his ex-wife's grave, sobbing like he had just lost the last piece of his life. He spoke words he never dared say when she was alive about love, silence, and 3 years of regret. But what he did not know was that the woman he mourned was still alive, standing quietly behind him, watching everything. This was not punishment. It was the result of an accident and a desperate decision. Could the truth mend what was broken, or only shatter it further? Daniel Brooks had learned to live with silence. Not the kind that came from an empty house, but the kind that filled the spaces between words he never said. He worked long hours as a senior financial analyst, came home to his son, made dinner, checked homework, and went to bed. The routine kept him upright. It kept him functional. It kept him from thinking too much about the woman he let slip away 3 years ago. Emily had been gone for 3 years, but she was never really absent. Her face appeared in his mind at random moments when he poured coffee in the morning, when he saw a mother walking her child to school, when Lucas asked questions Daniel did not know how to answer. She lived in another city now, teaching kindergarten, building a life that did not include him. They barely spoke. The divorce had been quiet, like everything else between them. No screaming, no accusations, just a slow, suffocating realization that they had stopped reaching for each other. Daniel told himself it was better this way, cleaner, safer. But at night, when Lucas was asleep and the house fell into that particular kind of stillness that only single parents know, he would pull out his wallet and look at the photo tucked behind his credit cards. Emily, smiling. Taken years ago, before the silence became unbearable. He never called her. He never sent a message. He just looked at the photo and wondered if she ever thought about him, too. Lucas was 6 now, small for his age, but sharp in ways that unnerved Daniel. The boy had his father's quiet demeanor, his tendency to observe rather than speak. But unlike Daniel, Lucas still asked questions. "When is Mom coming to visit?" Lucas had asked one evening while they ate spaghetti at the kitchen table. Daniel had set down his fork carefully. "I do not know, buddy. Does she miss us?" Daniel looked at his son, at those wide, hopeful eyes, and felt something crack inside his chest. "I think she does." Lucas nodded, satisfied with the answer, and went back to his dinner. But Daniel sat there longer than necessary, staring at his plate, wondering if he had just told his son a lie. 3 years. 3 years of distance. 3 years of pretending he was fine. And then, on a Friday afternoon in late autumn, everything collapsed. Daniel was at his desk, reviewing quarterly reports, when his phone buzzed. The name on the screen made his stomach tighten. Sarah Mitchell, Emily's best friend. They had not spoken since the divorce. He answered. "Sarah?" Her voice came through shaky, like she had been crying. "Daniel, I am so sorry. I did not want to tell you this over the phone, but I did not know how else to reach you." Daniel's hand tightened around the phone. "What is it?" "Emily." Sarah's voice broke. "She is gone." The words did not register at first. They hung in the air, meaningless, like a sentence in a language he did not speak. "What do you mean, gone?" "She had an accident. A car accident. On her way to visit her family. The car went off the road, down a ravine. It caught fire." Sarah was crying now, her words coming in gasps. "They found her 2 days later. They identified her through personal items. The bracelet you gave her. Dental records." Daniel stood up so fast his chair rolled backward and hit the wall. His vision blurred. The room tilted. "When?" he managed to say. "Last week. The funeral was private. Her family wanted it that way. Just close relatives. I am sorry, Daniel. I know you two were not together anymore, but I thought you should know." Daniel could not speak. He could not breathe. His chest felt like it was caving in. "There is a headstone," Sarah continued softly, "at Rosewood Cemetery, if you want to visit. I thought maybe you would want to know." Daniel hung up. He did not remember doing it. He just stood there in his office, phone still in his hand, staring at nothing. Emily was dead. The woman he had loved since he was 23. The woman he married. The woman he watched walk out the door because he could not say the words she needed to hear. She was gone. Not living in another city. Not building a new life. Gone. He sank into his chair and put his head in his hands. The tears came before he could stop them, silent and heavy, soaking into his palms. He thought about the last time he saw her. It was at a coffee shop, nearly a year ago. They had met to discuss Lucas's schooling. She looked tired but beautiful. She smiled at him politely, like he was a stranger. They talked about report cards and permission slips. He wanted to ask her if she was happy. He wanted to tell her he still thought about her every day. But he said nothing. He just nodded, signed the forms, and left. That was the last time, and now she was dead. Daniel did not go home right away. He sat in his office until the building emptied, until the cleaning crew came through and asked if he was all right. He said yes. He lied. Then he drove home in a fog, his hands gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping him tethered to reality. Lucas was already in bed when Daniel got home. The babysitter let herself out quietly. Daniel stood in the hallway outside his son's room, listening to the soft sound of breathing on the other side of the door. He thought about going in. He thought about waking Lucas and holding him and telling him the truth, but he could not. Not yet. Instead, Daniel went to his own room, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the wall. The photo of Emily was still in his wallet. He pulled it out and looked at her face, at the smile that would never exist again. "I am sorry," he whispered to the photograph. "I am so sorry." The next week passed in a blur. Daniel went to work. He came home. He made dinner. He checked homework. But everything felt hollow, like he was moving through water. Lucas noticed. "Dad, are you okay?" the boy asked one evening. Daniel forced a smile. "I am fine. Buddy, you look sad." Daniel knelt down so he was eye level with his son. "I am just tired. That is all." Lucas studied him with those sharp, observant eyes. Then he wrapped his small arms around Daniel's neck and held on tight. Daniel closed his eyes and held his son. And for a moment, he let himself feel the weight of everything he had lost. A week after Sarah's call, Daniel made a decision. He could not keep living like this, carrying the weight of unsaid words. He needed to go to the cemetery. He needed to stand in front of Emily's grave and say everything he never said when she was alive. Not because it would change anything, not because she would hear him, but because he could not carry it anymore. He arranged for Lucas to stay with his grandmother for the weekend. He did not tell anyone where he was going. On a Saturday afternoon, he drove to Rosewood Cemetery, a small, quiet place on the outskirts of the city. The sky was overcast, the kind of gray that made everything feel muted and distant. Daniel parked near the entrance and walked through the gates. The cemetery was nearly empty. A few scattered visitors stood at distant graves, but otherwise, it was silent. He followed the path Sarah had described until he found it. The headstone was simple. White marble, clean lines. Emily Brooks, 1992-2025. Beloved mother and teacher. Daniel stopped a few feet away, staring at the words carved into stone. His legs felt weak. His chest ached. This was real. She was really gone. He knelt down slowly, his knees pressing into the damp grass. He had brought flowers, white lilies, her favorite. He set them carefully at the base of the headstone, his hands trembling. For a long time, he just knelt there, silent. The wind moved through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a bird called out. But Daniel heard none of it. He was drowning in the weight of 3 years of silence. And then, finally, he spoke. "I do not know if you can hear me," he said quietly. "I do not know if any of this matters, but I need to say it. I need you to know." His voice broke. His eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I am sorry, Emily. I am so sorry. I loved you. I loved you every single day. I just did not know how to say it. I thought if I worked hard, if I provided for you, if I was there, that would be enough. But it was not, was it? You needed words. You needed to hear it, and I was too afraid too stupid, too silent. He pressed his palms against the cold marble, as if he could reach through it and touch her. I remember the first time I saw you. You were standing in the rain, laughing. I thought I would love you for the rest of my life. And I did. I still do. But I never told you. Not the way you needed. And now you are gone. And I cannot fix it. I cannot take it back. Daniel's shoulders shook. He bent forward, his forehead resting against the headstone, and he wept. Behind him, hidden in the shadow of an old stone monument, Emily Brooks stood frozen. Her hand covered her mouth. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She was alive, and she was watching him fall apart. Daniel stayed on his knees, his forehead pressed against the cold marble. His body shook with sobs he could no longer control. The words kept coming, pouring out of him like a dam had finally broken. "Lucas asks about you all the time," Daniel said, his voice raw. "He asks when you are coming to visit. He asks if you miss him. And I lie to him, Emily. I tell him you do. I tell him you think about him every day. Because I cannot tell a 6-year-old that his mother is gone forever." Daniel lifted his head and wiped his face with the back of his hand, but the tears kept falling. "He is just like me. Quiet. Keeps everything inside. And I am terrified, Emily. I am terrified he is going to grow up making the same mistakes I did. I am trying to teach him to talk, to say what he feels. But how can I teach him something I never learned myself?" His fingers traced the letters carved into the stone. "Emily Brooks, beloved mother and teacher. I kept your picture in my wallet," Daniel continued. "For 3 years. I looked at it almost every night. I told myself I was moving on. I told myself I was fine. But I was not fine. I was just waiting for the courage to call you. Waiting for the right moment to tell you I was sorry. That I loved you. That I never stopped." He let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "And now I am here, talking to a piece of stone. Because I waited too long. I always wait too long." Daniel pressed both palms flat against the headstone, as if trying to feel her through the marble. "If I could go back, I would tell you every single day. I would say, you are beautiful. I would say, I love you. I would say, you are the reason I wake up in the morning. I would say all the things I thought but never spoke, because now I know silence is not love. Silence is death." His voice cracked on the last word, and he collapsed forward again, his shoulders heaving. Behind him, Emily pressed her hand harder against her mouth, trying to keep herself from making a sound. Her chest ached, her vision blurred. She had prepared herself for many possible reactions: anger, indifference, relief. But she had not prepared for this. She had not prepared to watch the man she once loved break apart in front of her. She wanted to step forward. She wanted to run. She wanted to do something. But her feet would not move. Daniel sat back on his heels, staring at the headstone through his tears. "I do not know if there is a heaven," he said quietly. "I do not know if you can hear me. But if you can, I need you to know something. I failed you. I failed us. But I will not fail Lucas. I will teach him to be better than me. I will teach him to love out loud, so that he never loses someone the way I lost you." He reached out and touched the lilies he had placed at the base of the stone. "I love you, Emily. I always did. I always will." Daniel stood slowly, his legs unsteady. He took one last look at the grave, then turned and started walking toward the parking lot. Emily's breath hitched. He was leaving. In a few seconds, he would be gone, and this moment, this chance, would disappear forever. She stepped out from behind the monument. "Daniel." Her voice was barely a whisper, but in the stillness of the cemetery, it carried. Daniel stopped. His entire body went rigid. Slowly, he turned around. Emily stood there, 20 feet away, her face pale, her eyes red and swollen. She wore a long coat and a scarf, her hair shorter than he remembered. She looked thinner, tired, but it was her, unmistakably her. For a moment, neither of them moved. They just stared at each other, frozen in disbelief. Daniel's lips parted, but no sound came out. His brain refused to process what he was seeing. Ghosts were not real. Dead people did not stand in cemeteries and call your name. Emily, he finally managed, his voice hoarse. She took a step toward him, then stopped. Tears streamed down her face. I am here, she said. I am alive. Daniel shook his head, as if trying to clear it. His hands trembled. No, you. He looked back at the grave, then at her. Sarah said you were dead. She said there was an accident. She said, Emily's voice broke. I know what she said. Daniel stared at her, and something in his expression shifted. The shock began to give way to something else, something darker. You know what she said, he repeated slowly. Emily nodded, her tears still falling. Daniel took a step back, his face hardening. You let me think you were dead. You let me stand here and... His voice rose. You let me believe I lost you. Daniel, please. How long? Daniel demanded. How long have you been standing there? Emily could not look at him. The whole time. Daniel let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. He turned away, pressing the heels of his hands against his eyes. So you heard everything. You heard me fall apart. And you just stood there. I did not mean for it to happen like this, Emily said desperately. I did not mean... Daniel spun around, his face contorted with pain and fury. Then what did you mean? What the hell were you thinking? Emily flinched but held her ground. I needed to know. Know what? If you still loved me. The words hung in the air between them. Daniel stared at her, his chest heaving. You needed to know if I loved you, he said quietly. So you faked your own death. It was not like that, Emily said, her voice shaking. There was an accident, a real accident, and when I woke up, I found out that everyone thought I was dead, and I had a choice. I could come back, or I could let it be, and I chose. You chose to torture me, Daniel finished. You chose to let me think I lost you forever. You chose to stand there and watch me beg a piece of stone for forgiveness. I needed to know if it was real, Emily cried. I needed to know if you still cared, or if you were just holding on out of guilt. I needed to see. You saw, Daniel said coldly. You got what you wanted. Are you satisfied? Emily shook her head, sobbing. I am sorry. Please forgive me. I never meant to hurt you like this. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Then he turned and walked toward his car. Daniel, wait. He did not stop. He did not look back. He just kept walking. Emily stood there in the middle of the cemetery, watching him leave, her heart shattering all over again. 4 months earlier, Emily had been driving on a 2-lane highway through the mountains on her way to visit her sister. The road was narrow and winding, the kind that required full attention. But Emily's mind was elsewhere. She had been thinking about Daniel. Again. She always thought about Daniel when she was alone. 3 years of distance had not changed that. She wondered if he ever thought about her. She wondered if he regretted the divorce. She wondered if he had moved on, found someone new, someone better at accepting his silence. She hated herself for still caring. The truck came out of nowhere. It swerved into her lane, clipping the front of her car. Emily yanked the wheel to the right, but it was too late. The car spun, skidded, and broke through the guardrail. She remembered the sensation of falling, the sound of metal tearing, the heat of the flames, and then nothing. When she woke, she was in a small, dimly lit room. The walls were wooden. A fire crackled in a stone fireplace. An old man sat in a chair nearby, reading a book. Emily tried to sit up, but pain shot through her ribs. She gasped. The old man looked up. Easy now. You have been through hell. Emily's voice came out raspy. Where am I? My cabin. About 5 miles from where you crashed. I heard the explosion, went to check, and found you thrown clear of the wreck. Lucky for you. Unlucky for anyone trying to identify what was left. Emily's mind struggled to catch up. The car burned to the frame. Police found it 2 days later. They think you burned with it. Emily stared at him. What? The old man set down his book. They identified the driver through personal items, a bracelet, dental records from the registration. Far as the world knows, Emily Brooks is dead. Emily felt the air leave her lungs. The old man's name was Henry. He was 74, a retired carpenter who had lived alone in the mountains for nearly 20 years. His wife had died of cancer, and he had no children. He brought Emily food, tended her wounds, and asked no questions. On the third day, when Emily was strong enough to walk, she asked to see the news. Henry brought her an old laptop. Emily searched her own name. The results made her stomach drop. Local teacher dies in tragic accident. There was a photo of her, an article about the crash, a mention of a private funeral, condolences from her school. Emily's hands shook as she scrolled through the comments. People she had not spoken to in years were writing tributes. Her sister had posted a grief-stricken message, and then she saw it, a comment from Sarah. Emily was my best friend. She will be missed more than words can say. Emily's chest tightened. Sarah knew. Sarah had to know. They had been best friends since college. Sarah would have been at the funeral. Sarah would have known something was wrong. Emily called her. Sarah picked up on the first ring. There was a long silence when Emily said her name. Then Sarah whispered, "Oh my God." They met in secret 2 days later, at a rest stop an hour outside the city. Sarah got out of her car and stared at Emily like she was seeing a ghost. "You are alive," Sarah said, her voice trembling. Emily nodded. Sarah's face crumpled. She pulled Emily into a hug, holding her so tight Emily could barely breathe. "What happened?" Sarah asked when she finally let go. "Everyone thinks you are dead. There was a funeral. Your family." "I know," Emily said quietly. "Henry told me." "Who is Henry?" Emily explained everything, the crash, the cabin, waking up to find out the world thought she had burned alive. Sarah listened in stunned silence. When Emily finished, Sarah said, "So what are you going to do? You have to come back. You have to tell people." "I do not know if I want to." Sarah's eyes widened. "What?" Emily looked away. "I have been gone for 3 years, Sarah. 3 years. And in that time no one has reached out. Not Daniel. Not my family. Not anyone except you." "That is not fair," Sarah said. "You divorced him. You left. Because he stopped loving me." "Did he?" Sarah asked quietly. "Or did you just stop believing he did?" Emily did not answer. Sarah studied her for a long moment. Then she said, "What do you want me to do?" Emily met her eyes. "I want you to let me stay dead. Just for a little while. I need to know if anyone cares that I am gone. I need to know if Daniel—" Her voice broke. "I need to know if he ever loved me at all." Sarah shook her head. "This is crazy, Emily. You cannot just—" "Please," Emily whispered. "I am not asking you to lie. I am just asking you to stay quiet. Just for a few weeks. If no one cares, I will disappear for good. I will start over somewhere else. But if someone does care, if he cares, I will come back." Sarah looked at her friend, at the desperation in her eyes, and finally nodded. "Okay," Sarah said. "But if this blows up, I am not taking the fall for it." Emily gave her a weak smile. "Deal." For the next 3 months, Emily stayed with Henry in the mountains. She watched the news. She read the online tributes. She waited for some sign that Daniel cared. But weeks turned into months, and there was nothing. No phone calls to her old number. No messages to mutual friends asking about her. Just silence. Emily began to think she had been right all along. Daniel had not loved her. He had just been going through the motions. And then, 3.5 months after the accident, Sarah called. "I cannot do this anymore," Sarah said, her voice strained. "I have to tell him, Emily. He deserves to know you are alive." Emily's heart raced. "No, not yet. Just a little longer." "It has been 3 months," Sarah said firmly. "This has gone too far. If you will not tell him, I will." There was a long silence. "Okay," Emily finally said. "Tell him." Sarah let out a breath. "What do you want me to say?" "Tell him I am gone. Tell him about the grave. If he cares, he will go there. And if he does not, Emily's voice broke. Then I will know. 2 days later, Sarah made the call. When she hung up, she called Emily back immediately. I told him, Sarah said. Emily's hands shook. What did he say? Nothing. He just hung up. But Emily, Sarah's voice softened. He sounded destroyed. Emily closed her eyes, her heart pounding. Where is he now? I do not know. But I told him about the grave at Rosewood Cemetery. If he is going to go anywhere, it will be there. Emily drove to Rosewood Cemetery the next day. She parked far from the entrance and walked through the rows of headstones until she found the one Sarah had arranged through a contact who worked at the cemetery. A simple marker. Her name, her dates. She stood there for over an hour, waiting, and then she saw him. Daniel walked slowly through the gates, carrying white lilies. He looked thinner than she remembered. Older. Tired. He stopped in front of the grave and knelt down, and Emily watched as the man she once loved fell apart. She had expected anger. She had expected indifference. She had not expected this. And now, as she stood alone in the cemetery, watching Daniel's car disappear down the road, Emily realized she had made a terrible mistake. She had wanted proof that he loved her. She had gotten it, but the cost was something she had not considered. She had broken him. Daniel did not go home. He drove for 2 hours without knowing where he was going, his hands gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. His mind replayed the scene over and over, Emily standing there, alive, watching him, Emily letting him believe she was dead, Emily turning his grief into a test. He pulled over at a rest stop and sat in the car with the engine off. His phone buzzed. Sarah. He ignored it. It buzzed again. Emily. He turned the phone off completely. He could not think. He could not breathe. He felt like his chest was splitting open. When he finally drove home, it was past midnight. Lucas was asleep at his grandmother's house. The apartment was dark and empty. Daniel walked inside, dropped his keys on the counter, and stood in the middle of the living room, staring at nothing. He had spent 3 years missing her, 3 years carrying the weight of his silence, and now he knew she had been alive the whole time, alive and testing him, alive and hiding, alive and watching him fall apart like it was some kind of experiment. Daniel sank onto the couch and put his head in his hands. He did not cry. He was too angry to cry. 2 days later, someone knocked on his door. Daniel opened it and found Emily standing in the hallway. She looked small, nervous, her hands twisting together in front of her. "What are you doing here?" Daniel asked flatly. Emily's voice was barely audible. "Can I come in? Just for 10 minutes. Please." Daniel wanted to say no. He wanted to slam the door in her face, but something in her expression stopped him. She looked like she had not slept in days. Her eyes were red and puffy. He stepped aside. Emily walked in slowly, looking around the apartment like she was seeing it for the first place. Daniel closed the door and leaned against it, arms crossed. "You have 10 minutes," he said. Emily nodded. She stood in the middle of the room, her hands still twisting. "I know you hate me," she began. "I know what I did was unforgivable, but I need you to understand why." Daniel said nothing. He just stared at her, waiting. Emily took a shaky breath. "There was a real accident. My car went off the road. I should have died. But someone pulled me out before the car exploded. When I woke up, I found out everyone thought I was dead. The police identified me through the bracelet you gave me, through dental records. They held a funeral. My family buried an empty casket." She looked up at him, her eyes already wet with tears. "And when I found out, I had a choice. I could come back and tell everyone it was a mistake, or I could stay dead. And I know how that sounds. I know how cruel it is. But Daniel, I had been living in limbo for 3 years. 3 years of wondering if you ever really loved me. 3 years of asking myself if I made the right choice leaving. I could not move on because I did not know. And when I had the chance to find out, when I had the chance to see if you cared, I took it." Daniel's jaw tightened. "So you used my grief as proof?" "Yes," Emily whispered. And I was wrong. I am so sorry. Do you know what you put me through? Daniel's voice was low but shaking. Do you know what it felt like to think you were gone? To think I would never see you again? To think I lost my chance to tell you I was sorry? Emily nodded, wiping her wet cheeks. I know. I saw it. I was there. You were there, Daniel repeated bitterly. You stood there and watched me break. And you did nothing. I did not know what to do, Emily said, her voice cracking. I thought if I stepped forward, you would hate me. I thought if I stayed hidden, I could just leave and you would never know. But then I heard what you said. I heard everything. And I realized I made the worst mistake of my life. Daniel looked away, his throat tight. I do not expect you to forgive me, Emily said quietly. I do not even expect you to believe me. But I need you to know I never stopped loving you. Not for 1 second in 3 years. I left because I thought you did not love me anymore. I thought I was just a responsibility to you, someone you kept around because you had to. And I could not live like that. I could not keep waking up next to someone who did not see me. Daniel's voice came out hoarse. I saw you, Emily. I saw you every single day. Then why did you never say it? Emily asked, her voice breaking. Why did you never tell me I mattered? Daniel finally looked at her. His eyes were red. Because I was afraid, he said. I was afraid I would say the wrong thing. I was afraid you would realize I was not good enough for you. So I stayed quiet. I thought if I just worked hard, if I provided, if I was there, that would be enough. But it was not, and I know that now. I have known it for 3 years. They stood there in silence, both of them crying, both of them broken. Emily wiped her face with the back of her hand. I do not deserve another chance. I know that. But if you can find a way to forgive me, if you can find a way to let me try again, I promise I will never run away again. I will stay. I will talk. I will fight. I will do whatever it takes. Daniel shook his head slowly. I do not know if I can trust you anymore. Emily nodded, her face crumpling. I understand. She turned toward the door, but Daniel spoke before she could leave. But I still love you. Emily froze. Daniel's voice was raw. I hate what you did. I hate that you let me think you were dead. I hate that you tested me like that. But I still love you. And I do not know what to do with that. Emily turned back to him, her eyes wide. I need time, Daniel said. I need space to figure this out. But if you want to try, if you really want to fix this, you have to be honest with me. No more hiding. No more tests. Just the truth. Can you do that? Emily nodded quickly, tears streaming down her face. Yes. Yes, I can do that. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, Lucas does not know you are alive, and I am not telling him until I know we are okay. I will not put him through that. I agree, Emily said immediately. Whatever you need, I will wait. Daniel opened the door. Emily walked out into the hallway, then turned back. Thank you, she whispered. Daniel did not respond. He just closed the door. Over the next 4 weeks, Emily and Daniel met 5 times. Always at coffee shops, always in public, always with careful distance between them. At first, the conversations were stilted and painful. Daniel asked questions Emily did not want to answer. Why did you wait so long to reveal yourself? Why did you let Sarah lie for you? What would you have done if I had not gone to the cemetery? Emily answered every question, even the ones that made her feel ashamed. Slowly, carefully, they began to talk about the things they had never talked about before. Daniel admitted he had been terrified of vulnerability. Emily admitted she had been too proud to ask for reassurance. They both confessed they had spent 3 years replaying their marriage, wondering what they could have done differently. On the 5th meeting, Daniel brought something with him. He pulled out his wallet and showed Emily the photograph he had been carrying for 3 years. I looked at this almost every night, he said quietly. Emily stared at the photo, then at him, her eyes welling up. I am learning to say things out loud now, Daniel continued. It is hard. It feels unnatural. But I am trying. For Lucas. And for you, if you will let me. Emily reached across the table and took his hand. Daniel did not pull away. 2 weeks later, Daniel agreed to let Emily see Lucas. They met at a park on a Saturday afternoon. Daniel had told Lucas that someone special wanted to see him, but he had not said who. When Lucas saw Emily standing by the swings, the boy froze. For a moment, he just stared, as if he could not believe what he was seeing. Then he ran. He ran so fast he nearly tripped over his own feet. Emily knelt down just in time to catch him as he crashed into her, wrapping his small arms around her neck and holding on like he would never let go. "Mom," Lucas sobbed into her shoulder. "Mom, where were you? Where did you go?" Emily held her son tight, her own tears falling freely. "I am sorry, baby. I am so sorry. I had to go away for a little while, but I am back now." Lucas pulled back and looked at her with red, puffy eyes. His small face was confused and hurt. "But why, Mom? Why did you leave? Did I do something wrong?" Emily's heart broke. "No, sweetheart. No. You did nothing wrong. Nothing at all. Mommy just had to take care of some things, but I missed you every single day." Lucas's lower lip trembled. "I thought you did not want to see me anymore." "Oh, baby." Emily pulled him close again, kissing the top of his head. "I always want to see you. Always. You are the most important thing in the world to me." Lucas was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "Are you leaving again?" Emily glanced at Daniel, who stood a few feet away, watching them. Then she looked back at Lucas and said, "That depends on your dad." Lucas turned to Daniel, his face desperate. "Dad, please, please do not make her go away again." Daniel walked over and crouched down beside them. He looked at Emily, then at his son. "Do you remember what I told you last week?" Daniel asked Lucas gently. "About how important it is to say what you feel?" Lucas nodded. "Well," Daniel said, "I need to say something now." He looked at Emily. "I love your mom. I always have. And if she wants to stay, I want her to stay too." Lucas's face lit up. He looked at Emily. "Do you want to stay?" Emily's voice broke. "More than anything." Lucas threw his arms around both of them, pulling them into a hug. Daniel and Emily held each other over their son's head, and for the first time in 3 years, something that felt like hope flickered between them. 3 months later, Daniel and Emily stood together in Rosewood Cemetery. It was early evening. The sky was streaked with pink and gold. They walked hand in hand to the grave that had once held Emily's name. Daniel stopped in front of the headstone. "I still think we should take it down." Emily shook her head. "Leave it. It is a reminder." "Of what?" "Of what we lost. And what we almost lost again." Daniel looked at her. "Are you sure you are okay with this? With us trying again?" Emily squeezed his hand. "I am sure." "Are you?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I am scared. I am scared I will mess it up again. I am scared I will go back to being silent." Emily turned to face him. "Then we will remind each other. Every day, we will say what we feel, even when it is hard, especially when it is hard." Daniel nodded. He looked back at the grave. "I spent so long thinking you were gone, and now that you are here, I do not want to waste any more time." Emily smiled, her eyes glistening. "Then do not." Daniel pulled her close and kissed her. It was soft and slow and filled with everything they had been too afraid to say for too long. When they pulled apart, Daniel whispered, "I love you." Emily's smile widened. "I love you too." They stood there together as the sun set, two people who had lost each other and found their way back. Not because they were perfect, but because they were finally willing to try. 9 months later, Daniel, Emily, and Lucas moved into a small house on the edge of the city. It was not big, it was not fancy, but it was theirs. On a warm Saturday afternoon, the 3 of them sat in the backyard on a blanket. Lucas was drawing pictures in a notebook. Emily was reading. Daniel was watching them both, a quiet smile on his face. Lucas looked up. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Sure, buddy. Are you and Mom going to stay together forever?" Daniel glanced at Emily. She set down her book and looked back at him. Then Daniel turned to his son and said, "We are going to try our best." And that is all anyone can do. Lucas seemed satisfied with that. He went back to his drawing. Emily leaned her head on Daniel's shoulder. You are getting good at this. At what? Saying what you mean. Daniel smiled. I had a good teacher. They sat there in the sunlight, together, imperfect but whole. The past was buried. The future was uncertain. But for the first time in a long time, they were not afraid. Some days, Daniel still woke up with a knot in his chest, remembering the cemetery, remembering the betrayal. But most days, he just felt grateful she was here. Grateful for the second chance they almost never had. They were home.